Hey, what's up YouTubers? I just want to do a short video on the state of perpetual travel in 2016, 2017. If you don't know what that is, back in the 70s, a gentleman named Bill Hill wrote books on how to live outside of the US or whatever your country of birth is and how to have a lot more privacy in your financial affairs. And he wrote about like tax havens like the Isle of Sark, and he wrote about residencies like in the UK, like in fact in Sark. Back in the 70s it was easy to set up a residency there and have pretty private banking. Now in the 80s and 90s, that kind of all changed. Even now in the 2000s, you don't really have bank secrecy anymore for Americans because of the fact, one of the last banking havens in Europe, which is Austria, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, those places, now mostly share all banking information with the U.S., as do most countries of the world now. There's really no such thing as bank secrecy for Americans. Really the only way you can bank under the radar is to have a lawyer act as your agent. But I'll talk about that a little later. Anyways, if you read those old books by Bill Hill and other authors who continued on as in tradition, there's been so many changes that it's not as practical and easy and as cheap to do that anymore if you want to live a quiet life off the radar and have low taxes and things like that. But what hasn't really changed is the spirit of the thing. Now more than ever we have a heavy hand of government, and people want more than ever to have a lighter tax burden, a lighter regulatory burden, and more options on where they can live. And now with the internet, you know, it's a lot easier to do that. So I just want to talk about some of the changes I've seen. When you read these books, there's a lot of misinformation or misunderstandings. Like, for example, if you call up a bank now from the US or a lawyer and you're expecting them to tell you how it is, typically they don't want to talk to you, or they won't tell you what your real options are. In my experience, you really have to go down to Latin America or the Caribbean or Southeast Asia, and you have to go to a bank and sit down and talk to them, because if you talk to them on the phone or online, it's almost invariably they don't want an American client. Even if they would accept you for a client, they will tell you they don't accept you for a client. Then when you go to see them in person, sometimes they change your mind. It just depends on who your lawyer is, who you know, and if they really want you as a client. So in that sense, there's a lot of misunderstanding. Like if you just call a law office, even in the US, if they don't know you, they won't tell you half your options. This can be a bit frustrating when you're trying to do business with a law office and you don't want to leave the US, because you get a lot of misinformation, but it's basically they don't really know who you are. You don't have any references, so they don't really know who you are, so they don't know if they can trust you or not, what that they can say to you. And lawyers and bankers around the world are a little bit, I don't want to say frightened, but they're leery of dealing with American clients who can get them in a lot of trouble, especially if they don't have too many American clients and they're not making much money off them. So they're a little bit hesitant to take you on, so they'll usually just brush you off by telling you they can't do business with you, they don't want to do business with you, etc., etc. And in my experience, living in Southeast Asia and Latin America, is you still can open bank accounts in your own name if you want, but it's getting tougher and tougher now with FACTA. So as far as that goes, that's changed from what was written in the books in the 1970s. Another thing that's changed is you don't really need a mail drop anymore. But if you do need one, there's ways around that too, if you don't want to show a passport or anything to get that mail drop. But anyhow, what I found in my experience is if you really want to increase your freedom and liberty, you really have to travel to these places, sit down and talk to a law firm and see what they can offer you. And despite all the nonsense you hear online, there's a lot of misinformation. Even if you don't have a lot of money, you can still get a cheap residency. Like for example, I have in Central America. You can still have an agent, or have a lawyer act as your agent and set up a corporate account. So if you didn't want to keep your name off the assets, or keep your name off of visible assets and things of that nature, that can still be accomplished. So it really does not, in this day and age, cost you an arm and a leg to set up a residency. And then as far as your mail drop or your legal address, when you have your lawyer set you up a residency, he or she can act as your agent for your mail, so you can have all your things sent there. A lawyer nowadays can store gold on your behalf and a lot of different assets on your behalf if you so choose. So despite all the propaganda that you hear nowadays, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and with the help of a lawyer and with your own boots on the ground, so to speak, you can set up a cheap residency, get a second passport, and if you want to keep your name off of certain assets, you can do that too. Another misunderstanding, at least that I had, was I thought you really couldn't do a legal name change. You hear about people getting a legal name change on their passport or their second passport to, keep off the radar, so to speak. You actually still can do that. There's just so much conflicting information that it's hard to know what to believe or trust, but once you get down here, you really can do a legal name change. In fact, if you read the legal papers down here, you can see where that goes on. And when I lived in the Philippines, you could see that too. You can change your name in the Philippines. And why you might do that is because when you get a residency like in the Philippines or in Latin America, they don't, meaning the government of those countries, don't tell the US you have a legal residency. Just like when you change your name, they don't send papers to the US government that you did a legal name change. It's the same thing if you start up a corporate account. No one really tells Uncle Sam you started up the corporate account. And I'm not giving legal advice or telling people what to do, but just as an example, as an American, as long as you own less than 10% of a corporation, it's a non-reportable event, and as long as your name isn't on there as a beneficiary, then it's a non-reportable event. So keep that in mind. I'm not suggesting you do anything illegal, immoral, or anything like that. So stay within the confines of the law, or at least your understanding of the law. And that's what I found, that like if you show a desire, if you want more privacy, you can do a legal name change. And as far as I live in one of the C4 countries, and when you get all your ID, you can travel to all these C4 countries even without a passport. So for example, you do the legal name change, then you go into one of the other countries and use your passport to open a bank account. It'd be pretty hard for your enemies to figure out how you're, where you're banking, unless you go out and tell them. And I would say it's the same thing for a corporate account. Unless you go around telling your enemies you have a corporate account, it's pretty hard for people to figure out exactly where your assets are and things of that nature. And as far as cost of living and things like that, now in 2016 the dollar is really strong, so it's never been cheaper for gringo or Americans, at least North Americans. I know people in Europe have the euro, and the euro's, I don't know if it's at an all-time low, but it's around 106 or 107, and it was down to 104 I think last week. So for them the cost of living might be going up a little bit, but for Americans with the strong dollar, it's never been cheaper to live anywhere in Latin America and in certain parts of Asia too. And now with the low price of oil, I say low price, but it's only $50, but it's still cheap, really cheap to fly to Southeast Asia or to fly around Europe if you happen to want to live in Europe. So it's never been cheaper from that perspective. And then another perspective, as far as if you want to live the PT lifestyle, everything's different now. Like you can have a gold money account, a gold money. You can you can just put that in your own name. It's an easy way to put money out of the legal jurisdiction of the U.S. if you want. And not only that, you can have your gold and silver stored at gold money. You can get paid in any kind of currency you want. Like I can't remember all the currencies they offer, but if you want, start your account in dollars and get paid out in pounds, you can actually do that. You can also get paid out in gold if you want. You can also have the option of have your gold stored in Hong Kong or Singapore or Canada. So if you're a North American, you want your gold stored in Canada, you can zip up there and pick it up if you have a certain amount. And the only reason I mentioned the currencies and getting paid out in gold is because as an American you get certain tax benefits from that. That may not concern Europeans, but for people who are looking for a lower tax profile, certain tricks you can do with that, which I won't go into here, but suffice to say, you can have a trust set up and own your gold. You can pay in one currency and get paid out in a different currency, which may or may not be tax beneficial for you. And again, I'm not giving tax advice or legal advice. I'm just telling you what people sometimes do to get a lower tax profile, so to speak. So as bad as you think things are in 2016, there's still lots of opportunities to live anywhere you want. Lots of opportunities to get off the radar if you want. Lots of opportunities to travel more privately, but like getting a second passport. And then like where I live, you can just get your local ID that's separate from your passport, and you can travel into these C4 countries. And then once you get your second passport, it, as an American, opens up a lot of opportunities. If you have a Latin American passport, you can fly to a lot of Latin American countries, and you can fly to Europe without a visa, and you can fly to other Latin American countries where you don't have to pay those heavy fees to get in the country. I think Chile is 150. I can't remember if Peru is up to Bolivia is up to 200, but having that second passport can make it way easier to travel and a lot cheaper as far as paying those visa fees. And another thing is, if you live in Latin America, another misunderstanding is once you get a Latin American passport, that gives you entree into Europe through Spain. I don't claim you get a passport instantly. No, I'm not claiming that. I'm saying as a naturalized citizen of Latin America, you can get a residency in Spain, which will lead to a passport. And then once you're in the EU, you can live anywhere you want if you so desire, and do work and do business if you so desire. But with the EU kind of going into twilight right now, I don't know if that's of interest to anyone. But if you're looking for more opportunities for diversification of your assets and places to live, that's something to consider, because it does not cost much to become a citizen in Latin America. As far as the fees, there's a lot of misunderstandings about that, which I won't go into here, but I just wanted to make a short video on some of the things I ran into, and just to show people that it doesn't have to cost a lot to live in Latin America. It doesn't have to cost a lot to get a second passport or a second residency, and it doesn't really have to cost you a lot to even live here. In fact, for some of you, it'll cost you less to live here than in America, and you get more opportunity as far as business opportunities. You get more opportunities as far as passports and things of that nature. And like I said, if you want a corporate veil, so to speak, you can have a lawyer act as your agent to keep a portion of your assets offline and not visible. And you can also do legal name changes if you think you need that kind of privacy. If maybe you're trying to run away from a stalker or something, you know, you can do a legal name change and no one will really know about it unless you're going around telling people about it. So if you want to blend in, you can, as far as your name on your ID and all that. Anyhow, like, share, subscribe. Thanks.